Hey everybody, good morning. Manny Garavito here for another episode of Mornings with Manny. It is June 8th, 10:30 a.m. and we do this every single Monday to let you know the kinds of people that are working here locally in Miami. And today I'm joined by the very lovely, the very professional Kristen A. Corpion from Corplaw. Did I get it right?
Got it right. How's it
All
going?
right.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday, Kristen. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, we're going to interview Kristen because Kristen gave me some great feedback on getting started with the business project, because I know that when I filed my paperwork, it was quite the hassle. And sometimes you could be a little misled by the information that's out there. And the best thing you can do is have a professional by your side. And that allows you to make the process as easy as possible. What are some of the common mistakes that you see, Kristen, in your field that people make when they start a business?
Sure. So I'm a business attorney. I've been practicing at this point for 7 years, and I've been running my own business for about 2.5 years now. Our firm is located in Brickell, and both from the entrepreneurial standpoint, I've made mistakes, and I've had the pleasure of working with companies who are doing really well, but have also made some mistakes. And so if we're talking about businesses that are pre-formation, one of the mistakes they make is maybe choosing the wrong entity type and not understanding the type of analysis that goes into what's the difference between an LLC and a C Corp, who should be involved in that dialogue. Should you be paying one of these outside services to do it, like LegalZoom? Should I hire a lawyer? Where do I even start? And then once you've been operating, one of the mistakes that we see is not continuing to see the function of legal as something that your business needs to constantly tune up.
I would say that having someone that's in your field is like having a business partner, because they look over your shoulder when it comes to all the legalities, especially in the beginning, in the process, or if any obstacles were to come around. What would be some of those obstacles that you would see? Let's say you've already got your business started, you've got it filed, you've got the entity that you wanted. What would be some of the speed bumps that you would get in the process of continuing your business?
Sure. So from the legal side of things, there are a lot of things that need to be checked up by the owner. And I think that when you're the CEO, you're the master conductor of the business. And especially for small businesses, we know that the owner or few owners wear a lot of different hats. And we are all about the roll up your sleeves and do it yourself model. But it's very important that the owners are educated about potential pitfalls in terms of, do you have the right licenses to operate? Are you in compliance with local regulation, state regulation, federal regulation? And then as you start growing, the more you make and the more you work with people and have different relationships unfold, the more it's important for you to be protected. So the bigger you grow, the larger the protection you need. And that's really the function of legal. I think that it's modern type of thing to try to figure out how to take services that used to be expensive and figure out how to make them less expensive. So there are a lot of different companies and services that try to take the function of legal and package it a little bit different. And sometimes those are great, but I don't think that there is any sort of quick fix for an owner or CEO needing to understand, at least at a base level, how to protect their company.
So scaling has a lot to do with the kind of law protection you have, because in order for you to get to the next step, like hiring someone, maybe running an ad that has probably something that you remix design, or you're working with someone, let's say through Upwork or anything like that, anything you do to scale your business will require more and more legal protection. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And that's the thing about us lawyers, right? We're risk averse. And our clients, the entrepreneurs, they're risk takers. They're going to go boldly and try something different. And that's great. But the function of legal really is to protect that empire that you're building. And if it's that important to you, you've got to invest in doing it correctly.
Absolutely. I agree. I've done a lot of mistakes trying to figure it out and document it on my own. And I'll go ahead and say it here live that Kristen will definitely be the one that'll be reviewing from now on. Because let me tell you, Kristen, I work with a lot of partnerships and I just do it all verbatim, right? I don't really do much paperwork when it comes to that. And thankfully, most of the partnerships that I've been with have been thorough. However, it does give you a sense of confidence in the way you conduct business by having everything done in an orderly fashion. right? Instead of going online and trying to figure it out on your own, there's actual professionals out there that are looking out for your best interests, for the plans you have for your business, and they save you time and money. You obviously look out for the best interest by not trying to find ways to nickel and dime someone. You find the exact thing they need and you provide them in packages, correct?
Exactly. We do a lot of flat fee arrangements with our small business owners, and we understand that our clientele can only afford to do so many things. And a lot of times legal in their mind isn't high on the list.
I also read on your profile that you do not only for business, but also for entertainers as well.
Yeah, so we work with, we're business lawyers. We at Corplaw handle both corporate and transactional work and then dispute resolution. But in terms of the clientele, we're working with small business owners and creatives.
What are some of the speed bumps that creatives and entertainers have pursuing the dream?
So in pursuing the dream, we really want to understand contracts and we want to understand intellectual property. So I think those are two big ones that are important to know. And as you're starting to collaborate with different folks, I think a lot of times we see entertainers hit with all these contracts and agreements, and they just want to go out and perform or create, and that's awesome. But who's protecting their interest when they're giving away their creations?
Now, is it difficult to work with an entertainment attorney when you're getting started, or is it something that you would advise? Let's say if someone, let's say someone is making beats and they release the beats on YouTube, for example. YouTube kind of says that's the stuff you post is theirs now, and then someone goes on and takes their beat. I mean, this is just an example from a friend. And someone takes their beats and raps over it, and then they put it on their SoundCloud and they're monetizing it. Would you suggest early on for entertainers to look into legal protection, or is it in a certain phase, or where do you think is the right time?
I think that for everyone, the right time is the sooner the better. And it's not even necessarily me saying hire the most expensive, high profile lawyer in your city right away. That's not what I'm saying, but it's educate yourself on, what areas exist to protect you in whatever you're doing. The better educated you are, it's true of everything, the better that you can perform, protect yourself, and know what needs to happen in the event that a dispute arises or somebody takes your idea. What do you even do in that scenario? And so thinking about it helps to preempt, issues.
Yeah, intellectual property on the internet is weird because you got to get your stuff out there, but at the same time, if your stuff is really good and it captures the eye of someone that really likes it, they're very susceptible of taking it and doing something on their own. I've seen it happen multiple times. Unfortunately, there's no way to track if someone stole a joke from a comedian, right? However, you can see if someone stole your beat and, again, made it into a SoundCloud thing, which is also a very common thing. And maybe sometimes even people that put out an entire movie on Vimeo or a public video service like that. What are some of the things that they can do to protect their intellectual property on the internet?
Yeah, so, a lot of it depends on what is being created. And when we're talking about intellectual property, we're talking about a couple of different buckets, right? So patents, trademarks, copyright, that's all in this wheelhouse of understanding IP. As a general rule, and this is a way oversimplification, but the creator of the thing owns the rights to the thing. But if you're giving it away on a public platform and you're not putting any restrictions on it, then we're getting ourselves into a little bit of a gray area. So I'd say if you created something that you absolutely want to own protections around, probably hold off on giving it away, have some of these conversations, read about what's the appropriate protection for you, and then see if it's worthwhile to invest in hiring an attorney before you do something that might cause you to have less protection in the future as a result of just being uneducated about, how you need to protect yourself.
Yeah. So one of the things I've actually looked into trademarking some titles. So, I'm the kind of creative that has multiple ideas, but following through is the hard part. I'm one of those. And I get these jolts of ideas where it's like, that would be great. If someone did that, that would be great. And then I go online, I purchase the URL, I write a business plan. Like, I'm really quick at implementing something, but I'm also quick at protecting it. But one time I've been burned trying to protect an idea, even though it was still up in the air and it wasn't, I wouldn't say it wasn't fully formed, because I did hire a developer to build a website, to get the designs made, to have, a code that is protected by IP. There was a contract. I did the whole thing. However, the title was a little bit generic. However, I did own the URL, and I did apply for a trademark. And the trademark company, they gave me a lot of running around. It was a lot of like, we researched it. This is generic. But I've seen generic names been trademarked before. What would be the way you describe my particular situation and the trademark process as a whole?
Sure. Yeah. Happy to talk about that. So it's great when we get companies that are in the idea phase, they've not yet incorporated, and we can start helping them kind of work backwards to ensure that their business name, their logo is protected. Trademarks in the US are going to be, governed by the United States Patent and Trademark Office, USPTO. That's the place where the application is filed, you get your certification through. And so it's a bit of a process to obtain a trademark. And there's, a couple of different phases that go into it. In terms of the DIY, what can we do ourselves? Google the name before, you decide on it. When you got your list of names, I want to use this or this, see if anyone's using it. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bar for you to use it, but this is the DIY stuff that I recommend to clients ahead of time. Also, run the name through the state that you're going to incorporate in. So in Florida, they've got the Florida SunBiz website where you can see the registered entities that are active and inactive. It's free to run a search on there. So if you've got an idea in your mind, run a search through there as well. And then if you go to the US Patent and Trademark website, USPTO website, you can actually run a search there as well to see if the name has been registered. So at a very base level, that's something, without paying money to anyone, that someone who has an idea in mind for a name that they want to perhaps use or protect or build a company or idea around can do beforehand. Then when we kind of take it up a level, when an attorney is going to, actually let me go back, because I think you mentioned like trademark companies, and say this. There are at least 3 buckets coming to me right now for how you can go ahead and get your trademark, right? You can try the do-it-yourself method, not recommended, and file with the USPTO. You can hire one of these companies. There are a bunch of, if you Google companies that claim to sell trademark filings online, and so you could work with one of them. A lot of times in the disclaimers, those companies say very clearly, we're not attorneys, we're not providing you legal services, but we're going to help you with the application to an extent. And there's a lot of caveats in terms of if there is a challenge to your filing, if there are certain details that need to be addressed, they're not going to cover it. So it seems like, yeah, this is great, I'm going to get a trademark filing for $20. Well, kind of getting what
Oh, no, it ran me a lot more than that.
Okay.
And I still need to file more according to the results. They sent me an email, and whoever was reviewing it sent me just SEO result, like Google results. So like, look, I Googled this name, and they weren't actual established companies. I guess the name was just so generic that whatever just came up, they were just sending me that. Like, there's a website that has this page, and there's this person that said it once on this blog, and I'm like, yeah, but it's not a business. Oh, well, if you want to file it again. And so I was speaking to someone, and they're like, yeah, man, that's what they're going to do. They gave you some generic trademark file. They're going to give you some awful results saying you can't file it because of this, this, and this. And then now you got to refile it. And I came to realize that, if I just own the URL and just name the project the URL, since I own the URL, that pretty much protects me. But people using it is what might be the problem, which has happened before. Like, people just use the name and then they try to, but the whole thing that I've tried doing was going around this, I don't know, it was like email response. And then I guess they just were asking me to elevate it. So trademarking can be very expensive, I'm assuming, right?
I mean, depending on your market, it's going to run anywhere, I think, between $1,500 to upwards of $3,000. Depends on how many classes you're registering. And, there's a little bit of additional specificity that goes into it. But what we've seen in this market, in the South Florida market, trademarks are usually running $1,500 to maybe $3,000, depending on the firm, depending on what you're doing, the difficulty, associated with it. And a lot of times it's a flat fee arrangement. If you're working with an attorney, it's different if you're working with one of these, companies that are not lawyers that are also doing filings. But a lot of times we get folks who started there, they put money into that, they did it wrong, and then they have to pay additional money to pay somebody who knows how to do it correctly.
Yeah. I let's just say my life when it comes to business, since I'm still new to the game, I've I've learned a lot, and I came across great personalities that are in the right profession to help me out here. But I'm very comfortable in sharing this stuff because you live and you learn.
No, I appreciate it. And I think one of the big things for me working with small business owners is understanding that, it doesn't have to be a condescending conversation with an attorney. I myself, as an entrepreneur, have also tried to do things, cut corners. There was a week where I tried to do my own accounting, worst week of my life.
Oh yeah, I've done that too. I can relate to that one.
And it's one of those things where it's like, sure, I'm smart enough to figure it out, but gosh, I don't want to.
It's very time consuming. These I would say maintenance and little milestones like winning a trademark or doing your own accounting or, God forbid, your own bookkeeping and whatever it is. But yeah, some of the things in order to keep your business tidy, you're going to need someone that's a professional in it. Again, to save you time, money, and a lot of errors.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
One more thing I wanted to touch on, Kristen. So with the whole businesses being temporarily shut down and the running around and all the things that are happening during our time, give us a breakdown on some of the things that you can protect business owners with or something you would recommend them.
Sure. I mean, a huge one that we haven't really hit on today is contracts. Things like disclaimers, waiver language. Some of our clients that own salons or gyms, they are especially concerned, but anyone who's dealing with face-to-face interaction needs to be considering what's the liability of you interacting with someone, them getting sick, and the possibility of them saying, they are sick as a result of going to your establishment, And so there is certainly a whole realm of knowledge that every business owner needs to have around the function of waivers, disclaimers, contracts, and protecting yourself from liability. To protect yourself, of course, and you also want to understand how to protect people you're interacting with, your clients.
So just let me pause you here for a second. So you're saying that as we reopen, as we're going through the phases and we're reopening, there's certain legal paperwork that needs to be filed in order to protect you and your business from what's happening?
So there's not any rule for the state that says it needs to be filed. It's more of a gold standard protection, right? You can operate without contracts, but that's not great. Contracts exist to be sort of armor and protection in the event that a dispute arises. It says exactly what should happen in the dispute, and it shows that you and the other side had a certain agreement about what was going to happen. To the extent you don't have that language, it's up in the air, and maybe a jury will decide, rather than relying on this armor that you built and both parties signed or agreed to. Here, as we're opening back up, one of the things we're seeing a lot is these different, waiver forms, disclaimers, and then people really weren't thinking about that the same way before,
I didn't even know that existed. So it would be, for example, if I was a restaurant owner, I would have to protect myself some kind of disclaimer.
You could, yeah. And it's all the functions working together. So if we're talking about a restaurant, maybe we'll see some updates in your employee handbook. Maybe we're going to see a very clear paper trail in terms of HR and legal working together to make sure your staff is safe and that your staff isn't exposing any patrons of the establishment to, unnecessary additional risk. And so we are seeing some employers have their staff sign off on certain rules and requirements about wearing the mask, not taking it off, cleaning their hands, so that if they see them kind of breaking these rules, it's easier to let them go. But that's where, it's a dialogue between HR, the owners who care about doing it right, which doesn't always happen, and then legal. How do we create these documents that work for our business and for our operations? We've worked with a couple different restaurant owners. They don't all operate the same way. they don't all have the same type of, staff. So we've got to figure out what's going to make sense in terms of getting people to sign off on rules, policies. For every company, it's a little bit different.
I'm fascinated by this. I didn't know. I guess this is kind of like a blind spot because, most business owners are just anticipating to reopen, that they sometimes forget that there's certain like protocols and wariness and risks and, critical things to consider before you dive back into business, especially during these times. Okay. So are there any things that, other than the protection, is there anything that you would recommend to business owners that can benefit them?
So many things.
What would be the top three?
Top three in terms of the law generally, or just COVID-19?
Whatever you would recommend from your services at Corplaw, what would be the top three things you would recommend to business owners during these times?
Okay. I would recommend understanding, if you're working with people, looking into and investing in understanding local regulation and doing an overhaul on your policies and procedures and how your process of working with your staff, whether they be independent contractors or employees, is working and hopefully working correctly and in line with the law. Other thing, make sure that you have an understanding of contracts, whether that be contracts you're signing or contracts you're having other people sign. The worst thing you can do is pull a contract off the internet, not understand what the heck it means, and then use it for your business.
Right.
If your business is the way that you're taking care of your family, you've got to invest in doing it right. And the things that you sign, contracts, they're going to be, the end all be all if you are ever in court over a disagreement. And a judge isn't going to say, isn't going to appreciate or otherwise listen to, well, I didn't know that, what I was signing was incorrect. I just pulled it off of Google. No one cares. They're not going to have the benefit of that type of ignorance. And contracts as well are living documents. Sometimes we have business owners who invested in getting an agreement put together and it's really well done, but that was 10 years ago. And they don't understand that the law, changes. And as a result of changes in law, changes in their business structure, their contract has to adapt accordingly. So sometimes clients come to us with a document that maybe was great 10 years ago, but they have not invested in updating it and making sure that it makes sense now. Right now, a lot of contracts are being updated to consider the pandemic, because that's a recent thing that came up. It's not the first time there's ever been a pandemic in the world, but in more recent times, it's a focus. And we're seeing different changes in case law and lawyers, corporate lawyers, tweaking contracts accordingly to protect businesses in ways that maybe they weren't thinking about before. So take all of your papers as a company, right? Consolidate them in some location, because this sometimes business owners don't do, and then chat with somebody who knows what they're doing to make sure that your company is protected. So maybe more than three.
No, that's pretty good. That's awesome. Again, this stuff is fascinating because, as a business owner, I'm not even considering these things, but I'm seeing that I might have some blind spots as well as I go back out and start producing shows. This is awesome, Kristen. All right, so those that are tuning in, those that are listening or watching this video, Kristen obviously knows what she's talking about. Very thorough, very specific, very professional. I'm very impressed. Kristen, thank you so much for your time. Go ahead and leave us some information. Where can we get in contact with you in case we ever need any sort of law protection?
Absolutely. So you can get a hold of us online. The website for my firm is www.corplaw.us. You can give us a call. Our number is 1-833-545-7526. Or email info@corplaw.us. And then across social media channels, you can connect with our firm at Corplaw, or you can connect with me at Kristen Corpion. Happy to connect on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever medium you prefer.
Kristen, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks so much, Manny. I appreciate it. Take care.
Bye.